Welcome to the Fermented Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Anna, and on this channel, I'm sharing our journey of learning how to turn our home into a homestead. Recently, I was gifted a box of some pears, and they're a little bit on the well-ripe side. So I've been trying to figure out stuff to do with these, and I've come up with two different things. The first one that we're going to do is make a pear Kvass, and the second thing we're going to do in a separate video, you got to stay tuned for that one, is make some pear butter. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. This is a pretty simple and incredibly basic recipe. Really all we're going to need is pears. I'm going to do half in this one and then save half for the other one. You can see like they're pretty ripe. So I'm going to use the better ones for this one since they're going to stay whole, and the other ones we're just going to cook it down, so it really doesn't matter what we use for those, basically. One of these is wrapped in gold. Okay. So I'm going to start out with 3, and we'll see how that goes. Basically, all we need to do is whatever vessel that we choose, you need to fill it up between 1/4 and 1/3 with the fruit. So let's do that real quick. Cut out some of the center because it is a little bit gone here, but we're not going to waste it. Okay, so we're just going to kind of cut these up into pieces that'll fit in the jar. Nothing super fancy, just kind of whatever. And we're not going to be consuming these fruits, so it really doesn't matter if you peel them or if you core them. You don't want to peel them because you want to make sure that it has the bacteria and stuff that's on the fruit. You want to use it in the ferment. So we're going to put about 1.5 fruit, and then I'm going to grab another jar because I didn't think I'd need that much. Ooh, I think this one's a little bit gone. I think that's chicken food. Those are really mushy. I guess we're just going to be doing this video, huh? Oh yeah. Yikes. Can we get at least one more? That's super sad. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and divvy this up a little more. Because it did say the one video that I was able to find on this she said 1/4, but the kvass that I've made in the past was always 1/3. So we'll just go ahead and do about, I think it's about 1/4. It's a little more than 1/4. So this is just going to be chicken feed for the morning, unfortunately. So let me get this tidied up and I'll be right back and show you the next step. Next, what we're going to do is we need to dissolve the honey. The video that I watched, she didn't dissolve the honey, she just put it in there and stirred it up, but I like to dissolve it. So I have some kind of warm water. This stuff, I temped it, and it's like 92, 93, so it's not super warm at all, but it's kind of warmer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the honey, and it's pretty variable. Like you can kind of just use however much you want, and you can probably skip it too if you wanted. So we got our jars here and we have our honey, and it is melted in our just slightly warm water, and I'm going to put half in each jar. And I did put probably about 2 teaspoons or so in for each one. So there's about 4 teaspoons in here. Total guess, I didn't measure. So we got the honey in there. And then the next thing that we're going to do, the recipe calls for whey. I don't have whey, and I don't particularly care for the after flavor of whey flavored drinks. So I just have some sauerkraut juice, and we're going to use that. And the recipe called for 1/4 cup for a quart, but I'm just going to use 1/4 cup in each one. There we go. Now we're just going to finish it off with water. The next thing we're going to do with this is we're going to cover it up. I'm going to do that 2 different ways. The first way is going to be with this pickle pipe, and this comes from a mason top set that I got on Amazon. If you guys are interested in this, I'll leave a link below. The thing that I really like about this is that it really prevents mold. It's not 100%, but it makes it so that you don't have to burp it as much because the air just automatically, or not the air, but the CO2 and gases and whatnot that's in there that's building up the pressure can get out so you don't have to burp it as often. And the mold spores and whatnot cannot get in to actually set on here. So I have really good luck with using this top. And we're not going to use the puck that goes with it because there's nothing to hold down. It'd be impossible to turn Homestead down. And the other way to do it is with just a simple mason top lid. It's a 2-piece one, and you just put it on there. You can either put it on there fairly tightly, not super crazy tight, but it will build up pressure if you do that, and you have to come along and you have to burp it at least every day, if not a couple times a day. And basically what you do to burp it is you just come along and you crack the little lid a little bit, and once it starts to build up the pressure in there, you'll hear a release and it'll make like a hissing kind of a sound, and then you just close it back up. Or you can just put it on there kind of loosely so that the air can get out. But the downside with putting on there loosely is that there's a better chance that mold spores will get in there and they'll set, and it'll just start to mold on the things that are floating on top here. Most of it's sinking, but there's a few on top, I'm sure you can see, that are floating, and that's where the mold spores are going to set on there. So you have to weigh your pros and cons. I definitely recommend these just because it makes fermenting so much easier, but you can always use this. You don't have to go the expensive route. You can always just go with this. So we're gonna set this in our fermenting corner, and we are looking for probably like 60 degrees up to no more than like 75, 80 degrees at most. It's a fruit ferment, so if you put it in too warm, any ferment really, but especially a fruit ferment, it's got lots of sugar in it. If you put it in a corner or in an area that is too warm, it'll ferment very, very quickly, and likely mold will set in very quickly as well, and it'll just spoil. So if you put it at kind of a lower temperature, more like 65, something like that, that's kind of the ideal temperature I found for fruit ferments. It works a lot better, it ferments slower, and it gives you a little bit more leeway in the results. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put it in my room, and it's really fairly cold in there most of the time. And so that's just where we're gonna put it. And it's gonna be probably anywhere between 2 days to maybe 5 days. Could even go longer if life does not allow me to check on it any sooner than that. But I'll bring you guys along the way. I'll show you what we have, and then I will show you the next step that we have with this. So we'll see you then. One very important thing that I forgot to mention here. I'm sure you've noticed, but I have the headspace is very, very low on this. I've got about a 2-inch headspace on this. The reason that you want to do this is because this is going to expand and it's going to contract. And since it is a very loose, it's not like packed in there, it should release the carbon dioxide in there pretty easily. So it shouldn't push out too much, but I just want to make sure that I'm extra cautious in making sure that there's enough room in here for it to expand hopefully without expanding out of the jar. And any kind of ferments that you kind of pack in there that have a bit more of ingredients in there, then you definitely want to make sure you have lots of room in here. But I'm being extra cautious, even though it might not be necessary, but I'll let you know if it is necessary, and we'll find out together. It has been 3 days since we've left our Pear Kvass to ferment, and so now we're going to take it to the next step, and what we're going to do is we're going to strain it out and bottle it up. And we have the 2 different kinds here. On the top of these, I did burp these yesterday. Well, I burped this one and I just looked at this one. But this one's got a pretty fair charge to it. It definitely had a charge yesterday. So with this, you definitely want to make sure, if you're using the flat top, you want to make sure that you are burping it consistently, because otherwise, these only hold so much pressure. And it smells very alcoholic. Not as much as I thought I did yesterday. And now for this one. There's no mold on top, but there is calm yeast on top for sure. And I will bring you in and show you real quick. So this is the top of the one that had the flat top on it. I don't know if you can see it, but this one is definitely a lot more obvious. You can see all the little bubbles inside. And there's just kind of like a white layer. Totally harmless. It's just calm yeast. It's not furry. It's not a funky color. Totally fine. So the next thing that we want to do with this is we want to pour it through a muslin cloth. I have a muslin cloth, a strainer, and a funnel, and we're going to jar these up. You don't have to strain it quite so much, but I want to eliminate as much of the sediment in the bottom as possible. So let's jar these up. And then hopefully we'll have some leftovers that Robert and I are gonna try. And I leave it to about the start of the neck there. That's kind of the ideal spot. That does it for bottling these up. And I have this one here that is plastic, and this is just a recycled bottle, and you can use this one as a way to gauge the pressure inside the bottles. Like you can see here that it's very squeezable. It's just like there's water in there. And as these start to ferment, you can use this as a test, and depending on how hard it is, and you'll see the lid will even start to bubble up. And that's when you can tell when you should put it into the fridge. When this thing gets really, really hard, the lid starts to bubble, you know that there's a bunch of pressure on these guys as well, and you probably want to put it in the fridge to avoid any kind of explosion. So, it can happen. These ones are fermentation grade. I got these from my local brew shop, and so you don't want to use anything other than fermentation grade for something like this, because it really does, it holds a tremendous amount of pressure with the fermentation. So you want to make sure you're very careful, make sure you're getting the right equipment. You don't want to just go to the dollar store and just get any old bottle you can find. You want to make sure that you're getting a good quality, safe one if you're going to ferment in them. So save the other ones for decoration. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna give this a little bit of a taste test with the hubby.
What's it called? Pear.
Kvass.
Oh.
This one. We're just gonna do a little teeny sip.
All right.
You can try more later.
Okay. All right.
It's not very sweet.
Here we go. Very mild. Not sweet, but you taste the essence of the pear.
Yeah, it's kind of just essence.
Do it. So what's next? What's the next step?
Just set it to ferment. But it's not very sweet. I'm thinking I'll probably add a little bit of sugar to it.
Yeah.
Because if it's not very sweet, it's not going to ferment very much.
It's gonna sort of get that carbonation effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, with this stuff right here, with the carbonation effect on it, it's like a really light, airy, very good, just something relaxing that you could take on a hot summer day or something like that, sitting by the fireplace in the house. That works.
Hot summer day for the fireplace?
Yeah. More hot summer day inside the house.
Yeah, there you go, by the AC unit. So all I'm gonna do with this, I'm gonna add just maybe like a half of a teaspoon to maybe a teaspoon of sugar to each of these bottles, just to give it a little more sweetness. And so it has some sugar for the microbes inside here to be able to eat and turn into carbon dioxide, which will make it bubbly. So that's all we're gonna do with this. And then we're gonna let it ferment for a few days, or until this bottle tells us it's time to put it in the fridge. And then I will meet you back here where we will give it an actual taste test once it's fermented. It has definitely been a while since we have visited our Pear Kvass, and so now we are ready to actually taste test this thing. Okay, so basically what happened was I left it out at room temperature for about 5 days, and then after the 5 days I just put it in the fridge, and it's been in the fridge ever since, and it has been quite a while. I don't actually know how long. I'll go ahead and put like here somewhere how long it's been. I just haven't had the time to deal with it, so I haven't. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna taste test this thing. I don't know, have a clue how charged this is gonna be. The test bottle was pretty pumped. It was definitely had expanded quite a bit, so it should be kind of charged. Let's find out. And it is refrigerated, so. might take a little while to get this thing open. I'm gonna work on this and I'll bring you back when I actually have this thing opened. So we finally got it open and we are ready for a taste test. I'm kind of nervous. That's good. It is super bubbly. It doesn't have an overpowering sweet taste. It definitely tastes like pears. Yeah. I mean, I think with this, next time I do this, I'll probably have a little bit more of a pear ratio, like pear to water ratio, maybe add a little bit more sweetness to it. But it's really good. You can see how bubbly it is. Focus on this. There we go. So it's super bubbly. It is really tasty. I like this. Oh yeah. I think it definitely needs just a little bit more sweetness, but I'm still totally gonna polish this off. Absolutely. You can use this method to make kvass with just about anything. At some point in the fairly near future, I'm going to be making it this way with beet kvass. I have a batch of beet kvass that I've had going since Christmas Day, and I'm so looking forward to trying it. The only thing that I'm waiting on is I want that stuff to get old enough and aged enough, because I really like really fermented, really aged beet kvass. Nothing beats it. And I'm also going to be making another round of fermented, fermented pickled eggs with the beet kvass. I did that quite a while ago actually. I will post the video or link the video up here for you and down below if I can remember on making that. I did like a pickled versus fermented kind of series on eggs, and that one was my absolute favorite. And that stuff had fermented for about 9 months by the time I actually used it. So it was really good. I loved that stuff. It kept going, like it never went bad. I had it for at least a year and it just never went bad. So it was really good stuff. I'm pretty excited about it. And when I do that video on actually making the beet kvass, I'm going to bottle it up as well. So you can see kind of how you can do it with that. It's not super common to bottle up the beet kvass, and I've never actually tried it, so I'm kind of looking forward to giving it a shot. This one has definitely inspired me to go ahead and bottle that one up, and I have seen people do it. It's just not incredibly common. You want to make sure that you're using a fermentation grade bottle if you're going to do the second ferment, and like I said, you don't have to, but the benefits to it is that the bunnies are going at it out there. The two males do not like each other, and they go after each other, and they make these weird squealing noises. So anyways, so with this, you do not have to do the second fermentation like I did. You could have drank it when it was ready after the first fermentation, but if you have issues with sugar, it can reduce the amount of sugar. It also amplifies incredibly much, a lot. It also amplifies the amount of bacteria by a lot if you do the second fermentation. It helps it to get old and it kind of ages it kind of. And it also just brings out more nutrients, more goodness, more vitamins, minerals. I don't know if it does minerals, but the vitamins, it just kind of amplifies it. Like when you take sauerkraut and you ferment it and it brings out the vitamin C in it, kind of similar principle. The more you ferment it, the better it is, within reason. So I definitely, like I said earlier, when I make this again, I'm gonna add a bit more of a fruit to water ratio, and if I do that, it's gonna be absolutely perfect. It is still worth it. It is still delicious, and I'm still gonna drink this full bottle today, and as well as the other 5-ish bottles that I have in there. So I hope that you guys give this a try. Let me know if any of the other types of kvass that you guys have tried, as well as ones that you plan on trying. I'd love to hear about new fermentation recipes and get some new ideas of things that I can do here and share with everybody else as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.